Next storyteller is Barbara Summerville. You already know her. A wonderful, incredibly talented local actor, Barbara.
It was 1969, time. And I was home from college for my freshman year in St. Cloud, Minnesota. It was a difficult time for my family. My father had just died of emphysema, and it left a big hole in the family dynamic. There was this emptiness that everybody felt but didn't talk about. My way of coping was just to stay away at college and not come home. My mother was focused on making a living, and she had landed a job in a nearby elementary school, Christine, North Dakota. But she had to complete a number of college credits to secure the job. And she found out that she could go to Europe and get 6 credits. So she went. Meanwhile, we had to move out of the house that we lived in our entire lives. My father was a grain buyer for the Kent Dorn Grain Company in Minnesota, and the house went with the job. So we moved into our grandparents' house. That was in the country. My grandmother was in a nursing home, and I was working at a nearby nursing home. But that left a lot of time for me to fight with my younger brother and sister. Anyway, I was going through a difficult time. I was an actress, and I was home in the country. It was hot, it was humid. My older brother was away at North Dakota State University and on his way to Vietnam, and he had totaled my pickup. I had no wheels. I was stuck. Then my Auntie Verna came to the rescue. She had landed a trip to go to Prague, Czechoslovakia for the International Nutrition Convention. I guess my mother was a designated travel companion, but since she was on her own trip, I was asked to go, much to my younger brother's chagrin. I wasn't quite sure what I was getting into. Auntie Verna was a feminist. She was intelligent, accomplished. She was an extension agent for the University of Minnesota, which meant she traveled around to little villages and gave demonstrations in food preparation. And she could be rather adversarial with my mother and father in their own kitchen when she was preparing one of her newly inspired recipes. When asked if she ever had a love in her life, Verna answered, "No, not really. As far as the opposite sex went, not really. I liked a lot of men, but I never saw anything that I could marry or wanted to marry. When we were younger, we hung around with a bunch of kids. But a single love in my life, no. I guess my work was the love of my life, and my family took up most of my interests." Even though Auntie Verna was a little scary, she was very instrumental in my culture. She had taken me to the Guthrie Theater in Minneapolis and other plays in the Twin Cities, and supported me in my high school and acting endeavors. I, on the other hand, was more reactive than active. I resented authority. I was angry and depressed over my father's death and didn't know what to do about it. As my younger sister refers to me, I was suicidal. So, in August of 1969, Verna and Barbara head off to Europe. We landed in New York, and we stayed there a few days and went to the musical 1776. After that, we flew to Frankfurt and then took a train to Munich. In Munich, I met a dark-haired Belgian who understood my broken German. And we went for a stroll in the park. Verna asked where I was, but that was about it. Reading her diary 40 years later, here's what she thought. The generation gap is not something sociologists dream up. I was apprehensive and went against my better judgment, but maybe it will work out. Tolerance, tolerance, tolerance. I think Barbara is beginning to enjoy herself. I finally got it through my head that she would prefer not to be embarrassed by an old lady. So we separated on the bus. We'll give her full rein for now. After all, she's had it all her life. I hope she's as intelligent as she thinks she is. After leaving Munich, we went on to Vienna, Austria. In Austria, the architecture was very impressive, and the people were very fashionable. They didn't understand my broken German, however. They spoke a different dialect. Then it was time to take the bus from Vienna to Prague. Here's Verna's account. Took the awful bus to Prague. My visions of a lovely, clean, air-conditioned bus were changed by the dirty, clanging, wheezing, groaning vehicle that shattered us as it hit the multiple bumps in the terrible roads. We ground our way through the miserable villages, hundreds of them. No breakfast. Barbara grabbed some bananas from a stand on the side of the road. My vision was that we were moving along swimmingly when we came to this prairie where there was a little white house, which turned out to be the customs office. And they ordered us off the bus, and they separated us, travelers and students. Then they announced, we're not allowing any students into Prague. Verna came to my defense. Barbara is my associate, and we're going to the International Nutrition Convention in Prague. She has to come. Miraculously, they let me back on the bus. But the 2 German boys and the 2 English girls were left to fend for themselves in the prairie. And it was unfortunate because they had plane tickets leaving from Prague. We made it into Prague. Right away, we realized how poor the city was. We drove by a stand, a fruit stand, and the only thing for sale were a few potatoes. We went out to lunch, and our only option was this beef stew, which came with a raw egg on top. Even though the city seemed really depressed, the arts seemed to be thriving. We went to the ballet, the symphony, La Turna Magica, which is this illusion show, the opera. There was a common theme, however. A bird stuck in a cage wanting to break free, a ballerina struck down by bullets. The feeling of oppression was everywhere. Russian soldiers with guns marched the streets. It turned out that Czechoslovakia was going through a revolution. Dubček had been thrown out for being a threat to socialism, and the Russians had intervened with force. We had some cousins that lived in Prague, the Chekas, and we were trying to find them, but communication was really difficult. We found them, and we went to their apartment, and they served us some kolache, which is a pastry, a Czechoslovakian pastry with prunes and apricots and poppy seeds, but it was pretty stale by the time we got there. They'd been waiting for us, and they didn't know when we were coming. But it turned out Matilda was an artist, the wife, and she gave me some little paintings, and she painted some pottery for me that I still have to this day. And it turned out Verna spoke Czechoslovakian because she had learned it as a child. And she found out from them that they were trying to get out of Prague, but they couldn't get a hold of any English newspapers because it was outlawed by the government. So eventually Matilda walked us to the trolley and we said goodbye, and we got home. A couple days later on the trolley, I met these Lebanese boys. They invited me to their apartment. Verna said she was coming too. And we had lunch, and we were sipping ouzo on these Persian carpets, and Verna and I were speaking with these Lebanese boys. I guess they just wanted to practice their English. And it seemed like the generation gap was shrinking. Verna and I were becoming friends. Eventually, it was time to leave Prague, the beautiful steeple city. Here's Verna's account of the bureaucratic hoops we had to jump through to get out of Prague. Well. We were exposed to the system today. First, to get a stamp to prove that we stayed someplace. Took a trip to headquarters. Then to secure a cab so we could leave at 5 a.m., I called the dispatch station. Finally went down to the common where the cab sits. He took me into town. Lord. Then to explain where it was to come, I was tearing my hair out. Then the gal at the front desk insisted that she had to have Barb's passport so that the cab could be guaranteed their fare. Then she wouldn't give it back. Barbara almost died. Finally, some German got it away from her. It's beyond the realm. Went to the symphony tonight. It was nice. Couldn't sleep at all. Got up at 4 a.m. and the cab was there. We got to the airport, but we didn't have much time. Went through customs, had breakfast, got on Air India with all colors and sizes. And there was an English newspaper, the Bombay Herald, and the Newsweek and Time magazines. We stopped in Paris for a beautiful lunch, and then on to London. Our hotel is nice. It's good to be here. Went to Man of La Mancha. Very interesting. Met a girl who had left Prague a couple of years ago, who was back for a visit. She said, "My heart cries." We made it home. And I entered my sophomore year at St. Cloud State College. Grateful to be back, and with a lot of love and respect for my Auntie Verna. Auntie Verna died at 96 over this past Labor Day weekend. I went back for her memorial service a couple of weeks ago. It was a beautiful service. She planned it all. Even paid for her own bouquets. She donated her body to science and told them to give the remaining food from the reception to the homeless. I wanted to tell her this story, but I ran out of time. I know she's with me in spirit.